Imagine a time with no tornado sirens signaling your family to seek shelter or any sort of network to help keep communities safe.
100 years ago, the Weather Bureau actually had a policy not to use the word tornado in any forecast to avoid inciting panic. A lot has changed since then. A study published by the American Meteorological Society looked at more than 16,000 tornadoes over a 15-year period this century. It found nearly 95% of tornado deaths occurred within a tornado warning area, meaning the vast majority of modern-day deadly tornadoes had advance warnings. Even with improvements in technology and weather awareness, there's much to be learned from the tragic tornadoes of the past.
We begin with that story of America's forgotten twister and reveal new potentially life-saving changes in forecasting. On April 8, 2024, the Great American Eclipse had thousands journeying to southern Illinois, nicknamed the Eclipse Crossroads of America, to witness totality lasting more than 4 minutes.
Totality!
I missed the 2017 one, and I said there's no way I'm going to miss 2024.
The rural region is filled with small historic towns not accustomed to this kind of attention. Towns like Murfreesboro.
It is something that is not to be believed. You have to see it.
While this solar phenomenon displayed tranquil beauty, Murfreesboro has an undeniable history that shows this same sky can also produce a hell on earth.
It was basically gone.
Flashback 100 years, March 18, 1925. It wasn't a shadowy astrological overlay that had the world watching.
Left Murfreesboro pretty much destroyed.
Known as the Tri-State Tornado, newspaper reports at the time described the chaos.
The air was filled with 10,000 things. A baby was blown from its mother's arms. A cow picked up by the wind was hurled into the village restaurant. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
The National Weather Service says the tornado traveled 3 hours on a continuous path from Missouri to Illinois, then Indiana, with wind potentially exceeding 300 miles per hour. In some areas, the destruction was 1 mile wide. The Jackson County Historical Society is one of the few places that preserves the history of this forgotten twister. Scott Johnson is the president.
Still to this day, it is known as the worst tornado in the history of the United States.
Killing 695 people and displacing 15,000. In Murfreesboro alone, 234 people were killed, the largest single community U.S. tornado death toll ever. Testimonials from storm survivors tell a chilling tale.
Everything was gone, and then it caught on fire.
Marie South Williams was in a classroom teaching when the storm hit.
I got under my desk, and the children all got under their seat. It got so bad, and it commenced to break out number of windows. I asked and to pray.
Williams passed away in 1989, but her rare first-hand audio account is saved in the Illinois State Archives.
Do you have any warning of it, Marie?
No warning, whatever. All at once it just hit.
They didn't have any kind of warning because there weren't warnings, nothing like what we have today.
A tornado like that, though, would still cause significant destruction and probably loss of life, but I doubt we would see that number of almost 700 fatalities.
Meteorologist Grant Dade works in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and delivers forecast for the area where the tri-state tornado hit.
Nowadays, we understand all the different variables and shapes of tornadoes, but back in 1925, everybody assumed a tornado was that slender funnel. The biggest contribution would be Doppler radar. We would have seen it forming more than likely before it touched down.
Radar works by transmitting a focused pulse of microwave energy.
And it waits for those radio waves to bounce off of whatever it encounters in its path.
Meteorologist Kevin Scow from the National Weather Service explains it this way.
This happens incredibly fast. The radar transmits this at the speed of light. So the radar is just instantaneous that this is happening. I like to think of radar as like a flashlight. If you have a flashlight and you shine it against a wall, it's very far away. It becomes broader and it becomes dimmer.
Radar has limitations, especially when the beams travel over the curvature of the Earth.
The beam is just higher above the ground the farther it travels away from the radar.
Meaning the radar can't see what's happening below the beam where severe weather can take shape, leading to radar gaps across the country. This map shows the areas with America's best radar coverage in pale yellow. The blue and orange locations have limited coverage, with blue being the poorest. In the areas shaded white, coverage is minimal to none.
The gentleman is recognized.
Before being elected North Carolina's Attorney General, Congressman Jeff Jackson introduced legislation to help close America's radar gaps.
My district, which is the Charlotte area, is in the largest weather radar gap in the country.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is currently planning the next generation of radar systems. Jackson's amendment requires NOAA to determine priority locations for its deployment. Locations that are 75 or more miles from an existing weather radar station would be considered for priority.
This legislation isn't going to just help solve this problem, but it's going to identify a number of these spots across the country.
The House passed the bill in 2024, but the Senate has yet to vote. But this legislation and new radar tech are not the only hopes for improving storm tracking eyes in the sky. Researchers say drones are becoming increasingly useful.
By improving our understanding, we can translate that to improve forecasting.
Adam Houston is a professor of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences at the University of Nebraska.
One of the things that they can tell us is what's happening above the surface in terms of temperature and humidity and pressure within the storm.
Compared to planes and less nimble weather balloons, the increased mobility of drones allows them to better track these ever-changing storms.
What we will do is we'll fly back and forth, and we're hitting the same area over and over again, whereas balloons would just flow through it and they'd be gone. And drones aren't the only answer.
Combining drones with ground instruments and traditional storm tracking methods, researchers are developing a better understanding of tornadoes.
So we're getting a complete three-dimensional perspective of the storm.
When the tri-state tornado hit in 1925, there were no drones or even radar beams scanning the sky, no warning at all, just fear and apocalyptic destruction. A century later, Murfreesboro, Illinois is still on the map, holding not only a grim 100-year-old record,
There were so many lives lost.
but a disaster's lingering shadow that helps us understand what a tornado can do.
It's something that everyone needs to kind of remember.
Even with the latest tornado tracking technology, holding on to the public's trust and attention is critical to saving lives. Professor Houston says false alarms continue to be a problem in forecasting.
A lot of people's perception is that, oh, I wasn't hit by a tornado, so that was a false alarm, right? And so there's no way we're going to fix that unless we make the tornado warning so small that it just covers the track of the tornado.
Houston's drone research is showing promise and providing some of that fine-tuning.
If we can improve predictions, if we can improve observations, if we can improve numerical weather prediction, all those things will improve forecast and increase the probability of detection and decrease the false alarm rate.